Welcome to the Craig and Greg Show, presented by Maximize Leadership. Now, here are Craig Owens and Greg Harris.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Craig and Greg Show. I'm Craig. This is Greg. We are here to hopefully open your eyes to something that maybe you haven't thought about before, or maybe you've been processing it a little bit. One of the tools that is so powerful for leaders, and, Greg, as I was thinking about this topic, and looking back at some of our past episodes, this really, without us addressing it, has kind of filtered into numerous of numbers of our episodes because it's there all the time, but we've never specifically addressed it. And that is the idea of empathy. It sometimes gets confused with some other words that we'll unpack a little bit. But when I talk about a leader and the power that comes to their leadership using empathy, what does that bring to your mind?
Well, there's not many of them. That's what comes to my mind. We can work on it. I believe empathy is a trait of leaders that can probably only be learned. Yeah. I don't think a baby's born with empathy.
Nope,
it's about
not.
Feed me, clean me, put me to bed, that kind of thing.
I often joke that usually behind mama and dada, the first word that most babies learn is mine.
Ooh,
that's just kind of natural.
Yeah,
so empathy is not
It's
automatic.
counterintuitive to how we're here on earth, And so I think it's one that when someone goes, well, that's really hard. Yes, it's hard for everyone. Yes. No one's naturally good at empathy.
Right.
And I think that it battles selfishness, right? But for us in leadership, it's influence, impacting, but you have to start with understanding. And that's really my underlying word for empathy is you need to understand and know the other person. And that could be a lot of things. In some leadership organizations, it's the corner office, doors closed. You can only get through to that person with a gatekeeper. Yep. They're probably not going to score high on empathy because they're making themselves exclusive. Right. That's the balance I find with being in leadership. You've been in it a long time. I have too. And it's like, all right, there's a balance between being on the floor with your people, walking around, managing and leading and loving, and then also making sure you know them. Mm-hmm. Not just being present. Like, I showed up, here, I'm here, I'm handing out bagels, everybody's good today. But empathy is so powerful. One of the reasons I suggest that we address it somehow, and then you're like, we've kind of done this word, I'd make sure we didn't do it twice, But in an episode where understanding and being transparent and being there for your people, empathy really is one of the key things. It unlocks that door. Yep. I just wonder sometimes if people aspire to be in leadership and they still haven't gotten rid of their self. And that's the block I feel in empathy is you're so blinded. Mm-hmm. Naturally, we can do this. It's easy. We just put our head down. Right. But I love the word empathy or empathetic. And sometimes we have to enunciate because it's not apathy, it's empathy. Right. But it's a trait, behavior that people are drawn to. Oh, he gets me. I'll go talk to him.
Yes.
That's what happens.
Well, and I like the way that you just said we have to enunciate to make sure that we're not saying apathy, because I think a lot of people think that the opposite of love is hate, but really the opposite of love is apathy. When you say, I just don't
Indifference.
care. I just don't care. Now, listen, friends that are watching and listening, let me just tell you this right up front. When you start learning empathy, it's going to feel awkward. It's going to feel weird, and you're going to go, oh man, everybody can tell that this is weird. Yeah, they might at the beginning, but they're going to appreciate the effort. And I think when you stick with it, you're going to see the results, and the rest of your team is going to appreciate the results. But anytime that you get ready to do something new, it feels a little weird. But I think trying to learn empathy or being more of an empathetic leader really feels awkward for people that haven't done it before. You're in totally new territory.
Well, and there's potentially no end to it.
Well, of course.
Right.
Yes.
Like honesty is that's either black or white. That's, truth or false. It's, good or bad, whatever. Empathy is, so this I need a little more empathy from me.
Right.
This person, I totally understand. I get it. We click. Well, it doesn't take much to be empathetic to someone you click with.
Right.
In leadership, I've done this. Maybe you have too. I tend to kind of go to the people that I click with.
Oh, sure.
It requires very little empathy because we kind of know each other. We get it. We're similar. The one thing that I've learned the hard way is empathy is engaging. It's active. There's some traits we'll talk about in a little bit, but it's not sympathy.
No.
Sympathy is like pity.
By just going, oh, feel bad for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Empathy is I want to get in there and feel what you feel.
Right.
That's a big difference between someone's like, oh, I feel for you. Do you? The whole sympathy pity party, oh, that poor soul. That's not empathy. And to me, empathy is very attractive. So if you're looking to recruit people, keep people, grow your organization, empathy is one of those salves because they're probably looking at, I don't have my phone here, but the phone, you're like, oh, no one texted me yet. I don't matter. When you have an empathetic leadership culture, it is caring.
Yes.
It is
well,
caring.
and I'd make sure too, you want to let the other person know that you get what it is that they're saying, and maybe you have to share like, oh yeah, I know what that's like because that happened with me and my mom too. Okay, that to let them know. Okay, good.
To associate,
right?
Yeah,
but just be very careful that you're not like, oh, you thought that was painful. Let me tell you how painful mine was.
Oh, do we have that? Don't be a one-upper.
Yeah, because because then the other person, you're like, okay, you really aren't trying to empathize with me and feel with me. You're just trying to use that as a springboard to show me, But when you say just enough to yep, I know what that's like.
Yeah,
same thing. And me too. I've experienced that as well.
All right. So if you were going to say what one behavior for a person that works in your organization, if they were going to say, Craig, he gave me empathy, what would be that feel for that person? Listening?
They listened. They heard.
Yeah.
I think that people, if they feel heard, if they feel like, you were right there engaging, you weren't kind of doing like this or checking your watch, while they're talking or
right.
But you're listening. I like, in some cultures, they'll do something like this, like you'll be sharing something that's painful to you. In some cultures, they'll just go, they just make that noise and that's kind of like saying, oh, yep. Yeah, I get that
it's
one.
Home.
But even, if they're looking at you, if they see you kind of like wince when you tell them something painful or smile when you tell them something sweet, or you're just nodding, let them know that you're there.
Yeah, present.
I think that goes farther than me even saying, oh yeah, you know what? I've had the same thing. Mm-hmm. So what if you've had the same thing? Because you may not have felt it the same way that I felt it, but the fact that you listened to me, that I've truly felt heard.
Yeah. I think listening is one thing. We have to start with it. Otherwise, how do you get to know them or understand them? Right. Sorry about that. Not too loud. So sorry. But I think the connection that occurs when you go, I get that one. Yep. Oh, I totally agree with you. Or it's good to know. Or appreciate you sharing something very personal.
Yes.
Or whatever those are. That person's like, oh, we're even closer.
Yes.
I can't talk with a microphone gone, but we're close.
Yep.
Because you did that. And it doesn't take much. It's not expensive.
No.
I wish as leaders we would get that out of our heads like, well, that takes a lot. It actually doesn't. It might take some time, but
yes.
And this is on a prior episode, one of my favorite mentors was an urban legend pastor. And he goes, love is spelled Time.
Yes.
Because we've messed up the whole word love,
yes.
But time. And I feel empathy is kind of that same world, present, listening, asking, confirming.
Right.
I've even found clarifying. I may not know that well enough. That might be something that you've gone through. I don't know yet. I probably might.
Right.
Can you catch me up on what that means?
Right.
So you turn it back and they share, yeah, well, then my dad didn't, or, my coach in high school, or my wife, or, I wish my boss, or whatever it happens to be. You get to clarify, like, okay, that makes even more sense now. Thank you for going further.
Right. Well,
he asked for more information.
Because we can't possibly have experienced everything the other person and has experienced. And I think that it's fair to say to somebody like, wow, I can't even begin to imagine what that would have been like.
Yeah.
It sounds like that was really painful for you.
Right.
And I think that's what kind of goes, the first step is that listening, but the second one is some sort of volley back to them to let them know. So it's like, boy, so does that mean that you now struggle with, does it bring up bad memories when this happens? When you do those kind of things, then the other person, you're giving them a chance to say, oh yeah, you get me, or no, I need to clarify that a little bit more. But however it comes across, you've gone a little bit deeper in that relationship.
This isn't in my notes, but once in a while, I'm sure you get it too. So you're chatting with someone, you meet them at a restaurant or a movie theater, or you're walking the dog or whatever. And I'm going to say this and point to so sometimes I have that face, but that's an empathetic face.
Yeah.
So someone called me the other day, he got time? Or he's got time for it. He goes, I love that. What do you got? That's half gone already because you care. Oh.
Yeah.
Being understood, like, do you understand what I'm going through? I do. I don't know exactly what it is to walk in your shoes because you have a little different story than me, but I do get that issue. I get that concern or that worry or that hurt.
Yep. And
being understood is critical to the human spirit.
Yes.
Whether it's raising kids, each one's different. You can't do, boilerplate. Yeah, you all get the same. Well, it's easy, but it's not the right way. And I think the same thing as we lead and influence others is, I might have to spend a little more time with John. I need to understand him more. Mary's really quick. She and I are on the same page. I just check in with her, and we're already a third lap around the track.
Right.
But have you ever had that? Where you've had maybe like you misunderstood someone or you were misunderstood, and what did that feel like with you?
Yeah, I was thinking about like somebody one time that they're working on their computer as I walked by, and I said good morning as I walked by, and I barely got like just their eyes looking up at me as they went by, and I just kept on going.
Oh,
and then later on, that they're going through a really hard time. You should have known that because the normal response was, good morning. Oh, good morning. And that's not what I got. I got just the eye as I went by. And what I learned was that just getting the eyes was them saying, would you please stop and check in with me? I missed it.
Yeah.
Now I made it right. I came back and said, hey, listen, I'm sorry.
Right.
I should have picked up on that sooner. I'm a little dense at times. I apologize for that, but what's going on?
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it is, and that's why we said, you said it earlier, that, you never stop learning empathy.
Oh, no.
That's part of it is like what maybe you didn't hear, what you didn't see.
Yeah.
It's not always somebody calling you up on the phone and saying, do you have time to talk, or walking into your office and you sit there and listen to them. Sometimes it's like, why haven't they called me? Why didn't they talk when I walked by their desk? It's those kind of things to say, let me put on the brakes here. Wait a minute. What's going on here?
Mm-hmm. 3 things that I've tried to work on in being better at empathy. One is you have to have enough margin to actually be present, listen, and then maybe connect, follow through. And sometimes I got too busy.
Yep.
It wasn't that I didn't have the heart for it, that I just, I got so much on my list and I know this is going to be an hour.
Yep.
At the same time, if I'm leading an organization, which basically means serving it, if that person wasn't doing well, they're not going to be productive for 6 more hours. You might as well stop and help them. right?
Perfect.
Right?
Yes.
Like if we're really looking for like developing the other person,
Right.
I know I have a list to do. Yeah, sometimes it grows. I don't even know who put it on there as I don't write no more, But I really think sometimes the person who is going to be unproductive, they do need a little time. And that's where leadership can be time costly,
Yes.
but so relationally valuable.
Well, and I think that's an investment,
It
that
is.
you
It
expect
is.
there to be a bigger return on the other side.
Yeah, that would have been my confession, that sometimes my to-do list was a little bit too much. I do like to be productive, so that's my own Achilles heel. But with some people, they aren't going to be productive unless someone checks in. And one of the things I learned in one of my organizations was to make sure that we had empathetic agents. Like I'm not in every department.
Right.
You're not going to be in every meeting or every hallway conversation or,
Right.
you go to the lunchroom and you're at the watering hole. You're like, I don't know anybody, these problems here. And so you have to be present. But I think the active part, I love that one. And I think connecting is just more clarifying and maybe going a little further. Hey, I know that I might need to leave here and get to my to-do list, but could I come back tomorrow morning? I just ask that you'd get a good night's rest.
Yeah.
So you do care.
Right.
Well, of course I care. But that tells you in the outside world, they're not getting much care. And there's where I think our niche is as leaders. When you empathetically care and listen and connect, we're going to have the upper hand in making sure that we get a better relationship with that person.
Right.
Even if they don't stay with us for their whole career.
Right.
They made our experience in our organization better.
Yeah.
But
Well, and I think we have to understand that there might be something that we have to do for one person
true.
that we wouldn't necessarily do for all the people. And I think that's where some leaders hold back. They're like, okay, so if this one team member, I can tell that they're really, struggling with something, and I say to them, why don't you just go home early today and let's talk about this tomorrow. Well, then, the fear is going to be that all my other employees are like, can I go home early today too?
I need a mental health day. Yeah.
But I think that what really happens is that they say, oh, that was very individualized for that person. That's what they needed in that moment. And then if we continue to demonstrate that case by case by case throughout the organization, then it comes across.
I think setting precedents has becoming too much of our legal concern.
Yes.
I mean, it might be more of an HR thing, but it's like, well, if I'm going to connect with a person, I have to spend a little time, and this one's a tougher case to crack, and that's okay. What I think we as leaders, this is sort of the other side of the coin. If someone's always needing empathy and always needing your time, potentially there's going to be a time, I don't know when, can't predict it, that you might just to say, I'm going to cut my losses. I've had that on a couple where like, I don't think they're going to get past being a rotten person. Whether it's at home or inside them. I mean, they're always finding trouble. This is about relationships, but I heard from a guy that he goes, so he's on to his fourth wife and that's not working out. Well, clearly it's not the wives. Right. So in our case with an associate, It's like they're always having a chaos or chaotic or trouble. All right. So when are we going to not have this? Because I need to make sure I represent the whole company, not always taking care of one. But you'll know when that one is. Have you have a situation where you had to kind of wash your hands of?
Yeah, I think everybody's had that. But you have to think about, again, this one problem. Maybe that's going to spread and it's going to adversely affect the entire team. True. And I think when I get so run down as a leader that all I'm thinking about is this one person and how can I deal with them? And now all of a sudden, I've got all these other people that are like, what about us? And that's one of the things that we have to be careful of is only giving attention to people that are misbehaving or have attitudes or things that we don't, appreciate. Right.
Yeah, I've done
because
that.
it's easy to do. We have the cliche, right? It's the squeaky wheel that gets the oil.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they might need that oil, but we might need to just say, you can't be a part of the organization anymore because we are spending all of our time and resources on you and we've forgotten about everybody else.
Yeah. There is a place in developing other people where there's time involved, where you're like, I hope they get there, but it won't be on my watch anymore. Right. I've got them as far as I can, or as far as they're ready. You know, one of the things I like about, from a visual standpoint regarding empathy, it's, kind of the eyes, seeing them, ears listening, and then the heart feeling things for them. Like, I get it. Let's get you some help. I know that this is a tough time for you and your family. Whatever it is, whatever they brought to work. Could be a health issue for them. Could be, they're unfulfilled. But empathy, whatever they're going through, usually, let me rephrase this, a high percent isn't from work.
Oh, sure. Right.
It's all the rest. Right. And they bring it to work. Yep. So sometimes, we can help them at work, but they're still going back home. Or, to something else. So I think let's wrestle with being understood. What's the value for the person who feels understood by the leader?
Well, I think that it's incredibly liberating because, if I make a mistake on something because I was distracted thinking about my problem, that, like you said, it's not a work problem, it's something that I brought with me. But then that leader is there saying, hey, listen, let's I don't want to keep repeating this problem, so let's deal with the root. What a lot of leaders do is just say, well, you made the problem at work, and so we're just giving you demerits here at work, or we're writing this thing up in your HR folder here at work. Well, now you're just treating them like they're a piece of the machinery. You're not treating them like they're a whole person. Like, oh, wait a minute. I got you here for 8 hours. There's another 22 hours, all right. Wait a minute, my math's really bad.
That's Chicago math.
That's I guess. Outside of what I'm seeing here. So the empathetic leader is saying, I see you as a whole, complete person, not just as, the one little piece that you're contributing to your part of the day to this part of the organization.
Right.
So that's part of empathy, is recognizing the whole person there.
One of the things that kind of brought me to the empathy for us for one of our episodes, Forbes, good or bad, ran a pretty good study on attributes of leaders and best places to work. They're together. One of the pieces they concluded was you could have great pedigree, great education, lots of power and positions in previous places. But doggone it, if you can't empathize with people, it's going to be difficult for them to follow you.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And that's what we got to talk about. Follow them.
Right.
So if you can't follow the leader because you don't feel valued or understood, you're going to get less. It's going to be choppy. And I think that's the part I like to work on myself, is how do I know I gave enough empathy to give that person a good start or a good second half. They want to finish well. But in that Forbes article, or interview, I should say, one of the things that came up about empathy, unfortunately, was they want to use it. They want to manipulate it.
Sure.
And most on the panel were struggling with, how do I know that? So one thing that came up were there were tools. So like if I came to you and says, hey, you're doing okay, and last week didn't seem like your best week, this week's not off to a great start, just want to take a moment, stop a minute. Thank you for noticing. That was one of the first things that came up.
Right.
And maybe 50% of the problem went away when the person was noticed.
Yes.
And how easy is that?
Right.
There's just noticing. So I saw you go to the bathroom a couple times and came back a little red-eyed. Or should we take a little walk around the neighborhood here in the office and just see what's going on? Can we do that? We can do anything here. I mean, just make sure it's legal.
Right.
And they will get a little fresh air and get a little clear. The tools could be an EAP. It could be a supervisor training. So maybe the supervisor over that person isn't quite doing it.
Yep.
So the leader has to help the supervisor get better at managing.
Yep.
So obviously one of the main reasons people leave is a bad experience with their boss.
Yes.
Most of them came back to empathy. My boss didn't give a crap.
Yeah.
I'm like, ooh, they just went right there.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So to me, empathy is almost a gauze, a salve, or it pulls out
Yeah.
What someone's like keeping in, because they need to know it's safe. And that's the one thing.
And we've talked about that before, is that, our work environments need to be a safe place for mistakes. It needs to be a safe place for people to be able to express themselves.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know how many times we've said it, it needs to be, the leaders have to be approachable.
Yeah.
And, they have to know that, like, if they come into your office by, I'm really struggling with something, and I come into my office, it's not kind of like, sorry. Okay, I need time to, I want to hear you. I want to hear what you have to say.
I think I've had opportunity to be around a lot of good leaders. Some, were ahead of me, some followed after me, et cetera. I think being available was probably my simplest answer to the newer emerging leaders.
Yep.
Just make yourself available. I didn't say get your to-do list and throw it away, but just make yourself available. Let them know you're available because they might regulate on their own.
Right.
But if they know they can come to you when it's a pinch, life-giving.
Well, and you said earlier about margin too. I think we can still have our to-do list. We just need to make sure that we haven't, like, you're looking at okay, I have a 7-minute block right here. What can I squeeze in those 7 minutes? We can't schedule ourselves like that, because then when somebody walks in, and you kind of respond like this, now what? That's not an empathetic, opening for them.
When I went to my doctor's office and I had a 1:30 appointment, they didn't see me till 2:27. I did that to him. Finally,
Yeah.
But I think as leaders, we have to be available. And I think that's the simplest action point, to become a better empathetic leader, because it is attractive. People want to be around people who care.
Now, let me ask you, was your doctor late because he's empathetic?
Let's just cut to the chase here and just close this thing down. Yes, that probably was it. He spent time with people who had problems.
Yep.
And I didn't have one. I just came in for my annual physical. So it wasn't high on the list.
Yep.
Right?
See, because the doctor that I worked for a while, I never got a lunch break, because we used lunchtime to catch up on our morning appointments. And then we were also the last doctor medical assistant team to close out at the end of the day. Because he spent so much time with his patients. He sat there and...
You did catch me on that one.
And they talked to him, and he listened to them, and he would ask questions outside of their medical thing of like, well, is this happening? And, and that's why you can't have... So after a while, just to kind of complete that, the office manager started booking for us one less appointment in the morning and one less in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Instead of saying to that doctor,
squeeze it in.
Come on, get on schedule.
Yeah.
Okay, let's accommodate this a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's what, that's what I'm talking about with the margin. Like, let's make sure that we've got the time, so that when you walk by, good morning, and you just get the look, you go,
I better stop.
Okay, I've got time in my schedule.
Yeah.
Do I have things to do? I always have things to do. I don't know about you, but my to-do lists never get to done. I never finish everything on my to-do list.
We can finish up here, bro, but I think one of my favorite ones in talking to other, executive business owners, like, so you're taking off on vacation? Yeah, I just got to work a couple more hours, get caught up. I said, what a fallacy.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not caught up. Next month, you'll have the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Or next week.
Right.
But the whole caught up, one of the cautions I had to give myself a few times was, don't be in a rush.
Yes. Yeah.
Because if I acted rushed, they wouldn't share much.
Yeah, absolutely, because they don't want to take up your precious time. So listen, friends, we'd love to help you with this, because empathy really is an important thing. And maybe one of the things that we could help you with in our coaching service is maybe we could look at your daily schedule with you. If you say, boy, I just don't have time to be able to interact with my teammates, let us take a look at some of the things. Greg has been really good about talking to some people and saying, well, why are you doing this and this? Are there people you could delegate on your team to? So I think that that's a very valuable resource that we could offer to you so that you have more of your time and empathy for your other teammates, because you're going to be the one to lead them to great success, not us, but we can help maybe coach you. So check out on maximizeleadership.com, check out our coaching page there, fill in the form at the bottom, just share with us a little bit. This is what I'm struggling with, or this is what I would like to see happen. I don't know how to get there. We'd love to look at that and talk to you, get you matched up with the coach. We want you to interact with us as well. If you've got some feedback, some questions, you could leave them as a comment here on this video. Reach out to us on X at Maximize Podcast. Tell us what you think about this episode, or maybe make a suggestion of a previous or a next episode that we can talk about, and we can dig into those topics a little bit that'll benefit you. That's why we're here. We want to resource you to help you get better and maximize your leadership. So stay tuned, because there's lots more great content coming your way real soon.
Get in touch with Craig and Greg through Twitter at Maximize Podcast or at MaximizeLeadership.com. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes of The Craig and Greg Show.